think there's an inherent difference between a gig and a show. A gig is where I show up to entertain the people in your establishment. A show is where people are there to see me. It's something musicians and venues get mixed up with all the time. I can't tell you how many times I've had managers come up to me at these places and say, "You got a lot of people coming tonight? How many people you bring in?" It depends on how good your pizza is. I don't know. I'm not bringing anybody. I'm just the guy making balloon animals for your kid's birthday party. Okay, if the whole class shows up, I'm making balloon animals for the whole class. If 3 kids show up and they don't like balloons, I'm not making any. But I'm here contracted from 6 to 9, and you pay X rate for that. Like, you work at Starbucks. Does your boss say, "Hey, do you have friends coming in to support Starbucks today?" No, it's not your problem. Now, on the flip side, I've booked artists before at venues where the main purpose is live music. That's what they're there for. We're not opening our doors unless there's a concert. And I'll be emailing with somebody and they'll say, "Hey, can I play such and such date?" And I'm like, "Sure, we can work out this door deal or whatever." And they say, "Well, my rate is $1,000 for a 90-minute set." And I'm like, "Not if you don't have $1,000 worth of market value. You might get that at a house concert. You might get that at a listening room if there's a built-in audience and they do a concert series and you have a rapport with them." But that's where I see artists get it mixed up. Is it a gig or is it a show? Who's bringing what to the table?
Okay, so the Andy Sadao band, I think I hope I'm saying that correctly. I don't know. That's the guy we just listened to from an Instagram reel. I don't know anything about him other than that popped up in my reels, and I thought, wow, what a great way to put this. It's maybe one of the most succinct explanations of that gig versus a show that I've ever heard. So I immediately sent it to Derek Sean, also Baxter, but he never listens to email or Facebook messages. So, whatever. But it's, man, that was a really, I'm going to think of it like it's good language to know, to say what I've already kind of thought.
I think it is the quickest way to say what a lot of musicians feel, especially if you've done shows and gigs. Now, I do feel, as we have a special experience where we've been able to help run a venue that Derek owns. So we've all been down there hanging out, doing stuff.
Which was shows. It was a venue.
Shows.
And there were some kind of gigs there too, but it all leaned towards shows. And now listen, all of us, obviously we're a guitar shop and we have a YouTube channel. We all gig though. We all are musicians.
And I think we all have a fair amount of experience in both forms of that. And I think for the most part, we all have the same opinion about gigs to shows, right? Yeah. But jumping straight into the gig part of this, because I do feel like that's where the nitty gritty, dirty side of it is. How many times have you heard somebody go to the bar to play and they come into the shop the next day, or we see them out somewhere and they're like, no, they get pissed off. Nobody showed up. Nobody was listening to me. Nobody was this. Nobody was that. The truth of the matter is, whenever you're playing a gig, especially a gig like that, they're not there for you.
Well, they're there because they're there anyways, and the idea is that, and I hate to say this, background music enhances the vibe, and the experience. Now, that's not to say that you can't have a draw at local places like that where it is a gig. There are people around here that play.
Yes.
Absolutely have people that are going to come out and see them. We're fortunate enough to have music lovers in our community, so they do come out to gigs and treat them a little like shows sometimes.
They do.
But that's not always the case. I mean, I played a gig over the weekend.
Yeah.
It was kind of dead. And I sort of knew it was going to be dead because there was other stuff going on in town. There was a big festival, like the Buggy Festival thing down the road. So, but it's like the guy said, I'm contracted to be there for 3 hours.
Yeah.
I'm going to play. I'm going to play whether it's 5 people or 500 people.
Yes.
It does change a little bit how I'm going to interact with the crowd. Like if there's 500 people and they're rowdy, I'm going to play a whole different set in a gig.
Yes.
Than I would in that same gig if it's like relaxed. So it was relaxed. So I played such a different set than I,
Absolutely.
And that's fun for me.
Yes.
I think that's cool. If you got a tip bucket, it's a gig.
I think that is the best point of reference. If you have a tip bucket, it's a gig. Now, I want to talk, before we get into shows, there is a crossover point, and I've seen it happen. We've had it happen down at the Rooster before, where it is a show. It is a ticketed show, an event, right? So if anybody's coming through that door, they are paying money because they are there to see you, right? Specifically you.
Especially like that listening room kind of thing like the guy talked about, right?
There's
a great one in Dunn up the road from us. It's called the, what is it called? The Bird's Nest. The Bird's Nest.
Yeah.
The Neon Rooster was, I would call a listening room for a lot of the shows. But,
absolutely.
But yeah, they're coming in.
They come in, they set up, and they're like, you don't have a tip jar here? Can we put anything up as a tip jar? And then we have to have the awkward conversation to say, like, that's not really what this is, like you should play the original material, you should showcase your artistry. That's what the people come out here for. That's our built-in audience.
Your tip jar to show is your merch.
Yes.
If you want to be tipped, if you want to make more money and you're having a show, you have concerts where people come to see you, the way to do, and I know it costs money on the front end and that kind of sucks sometimes, but the way to do that is to have a killer merch game. Derek and I were just talking about this. Yep. I've heard Derek preach this to artists over and over because he saw it running the thing.
You see it, man.
And listen, it doesn't take much for people to get excited about your merch because they want to invest in you. No. If they came to your show, man, they want to invest in you that way, right?
To talk about the links that it can go from, too, this is just to maybe give some of you out there some ideas. If you are looking for that and you're like, well, what would make me unique? We've seen everything from really cool, old school hotel keychains a la Addison Johnson, to, Matt Waters has these customized beanies and stuff that we all love. Records, CDs, vinyl prints, just nice printout artwork and stuff like that. Stickers where your tip jar is at the merch booth, where you say, hey, anything you'd like to donate, whenever you do, take a sticker.
I love the idea of the hotel room key because it ties into a song, right?
It does.
And I used to play for a guy, he had a song, and it was kind of like what you'd call bro country a little bit, but he had koozies, and the song for that summer was about a koozie, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like I've seen that more contemporary, sort of in the country world, I was about to say Zach Bryan, but Zach Brown did a thing where he creates this experience at his show, and you can buy any Zach Brown thing that you want, and it's in this world. Kenny Chesney did that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think Blackberry Smoke does a pretty good job
they do.
of that.
I was going to say, and this is a great segue, I think, into shows, right? A show is about the experience, and all the stuff we just talked about with merchandise and stuff like that is a part of the experience. If you cultivate this image around whatever your album is, whatever your whole entire artist look image is, you're creating a world is how I view it. And you need to create that world to the best of your abilities, but also whenever you go to play that show, the elements that go into that show are not the same that would go into a gig.
Yeah.
You want to dress up. You want to present yourself. At least that's how I think. I want to present all that, present the music in the best way I possibly can. And that means if a part of my sound is having a crazy cabinet set up with a couple of different amps and I'm going to do an ABY switcher, I'm going to go the extra mile because this is my show. You're coming to my show. You're not showing up somewhere that I am also just playing a gig,
Well, some of those things to me is not a hard black and white line. They believe, you might want to do that at a gig if you got your band.
Absolutely.
But a gig with me solo, we had this conversation the other day. I'm not bringing lights.
No.
Because it's a gig, right? I'm showing up to play music for these 3 hours, and now don't get me wrong, I'm going to put everything I can into it to be entertaining. But I'm not killing myself
Yes, I think some people, and we've had conversations with some of these people about this, is they suspect that we mean, well, you don't have to try at the gig.
No.
The truth is that you should be able to win people over at a gig so that they'll pay to go to the show, is how I view it. And the only way to do that is to try your best at all times.
Well, but I think it's a different set of best, right? I think for the gig, a lot of times it's hey, be able to take requests. Do you know what I mean? Pick song, be able to read the room and play the songs that those people want to hear. It's tricky if you only got 30 songs and hell or high water you're playing those songs. Now at your show, dude, play your set list because it's your stuff, right?
Your set list.
But at your gig, sometimes they want to hear Friends in Low Places. Yeah. Sometimes they, you know what I mean? But I could not tell you how many times after a night of playing that junk that I don't necessarily, it's not fulfilling my artistic thing in my soul, but they come up and say, hey man, here's $20, play what's your favorite thing to play? What's your favorite thing? That's when
rewarding.
you've connected well, you've done a good job, and they've enjoyed you, right? And that makes the gigs fun. And I'm not saying that happens all the time, or it should, but it's happened to me enough that I can appreciate, okay, well, I just played Sweet Home Alabama, and and Friends in Low Places, and some whatever, the newest country thing.
Absolutely. And he said one thing in that I'm thinking on now, which is, he said people go into shows from gigging sides of things, and they say, well, my rate is blah. That's not how that really works. How many asses do you put in seats? That's where that question comes up. And I've talked to people who think that's absolutely absurd, and then I watched them that night at the Neon Rooster only bring out 3 to 5 people. And those 3 to 5 people were mom, dad, brother, sister, boyfriend.
Well, that takes a lot of work. And even with a lot of work, sometimes it fails. Like,
yeah.
Every documentary you go watch of an artist, they'll talk about going through a town and only 5 people buying a ticket. And then the next time, 20 people do. And then the next, and it's cumulative, right? And it's hard because you lose money. I've been in scenarios where, I played a show at a theater. I was super excited. And then I get there and it's like, God, I hope we broke even. You know what I mean? Like, I hope I don't owe the theater money. And there are times I have.
Yeah. But that is a part of doing a show.
It is, but there's something crazy fulfilling when you do one of those I was going to say gigs, when you do one of those shows and you do have people who buy tickets and people who care, and you actually come out to the good.
And you resonate with that crowd. It's an amazing evening when you can fulfill that and do that.
But you can lose a little money on the venue and have a great merch game.
Yes.
And still come out to the good.
Absolutely. Yep.
But it takes work. I mean, that's hard. That's tricky.
It does take work.
But it's possible.
And at the gigs, too, the way that these things correlate, I think, is if you are playing a lot of gigs out, you can always promote your shows at gigs. It's free promotion right there on the spot.
I think you got to be tricky, though, playing a show in the same place you play gigs, because it's hard to expect people to pay good money to come see you if they can see you for free every other night of the week.
Yes.
And I know, like you got to play up the fact that it's like maybe you're only your original music, or like a different set of stuff. You know what I mean?
That? Is it, for a great example is you play just acoustic when you go out and gig. Well, hey, I got a full band.
Full band show.
I've got, lights, I've got smoke machine, whatever it is. Whatever your experience
full production.
is.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can still push that point, but it is really hard in the same area, and it depends on the size of the area. You live in New York City, you can probably get away with it. You live in Nashville, you can probably get away with it. If you change up what the monikers are and stuff like that, and you have some space.
Dude, our good friend, maybe this, this is a good idea to close up on, but our good friend, old Roland J. Beckerman, tells me all the time, he used to be around the Charlotte area a long time ago, and he would book these places that they didn't book local acts. And he said people would ask him, man, how are you booking that place? And he said he'd book it once, maybe twice a year max. Yeah. And he's like, the reason is because I'm not playing at every little spot every week, all year long. He's like, because then, guess what? They cannot sell tickets. Yeah. They can't, you know what I mean? So it's like, so when you play that show, it's got to be like an event. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And then there's nothing wrong with playing the gigs every week. You make a great living that way sometimes. Yeah. But you just got to know what you're aiming for. And I think it's nice to differentiate between the two things, because they're not the same.
That's right.
But I don't know. We just wanted to share that little clip because I thought it was kind of brilliant, and I thought there was a lot of wisdom in it. So go check out that guy on Instagram if you get a chance.
Let us know what you think in the comments. If you agree, if you disagree, if you don't understand, that too. Let it rip.
You guys couldn't be more wrong. But
it's true.
Either way, hit like, hit subscribe.
Hit the bell.
We appreciate you hanging out with us. We'll see you next time.